Welcome back to our channel. This month we are interviewing Team iGEM ISER Thiruvananthapuram. But before we get into that, let's talk a little bit more about what exactly iGEM is. The International Genetically Engineered Machine, often abbreviated as iGEM, is an annual synthetic biology competition. When it started out in 2004, there were only 5 teams, but it has now grown to be a truly global phenomenon with more than 250 teams competing in 2020. At its core, iGEM gives students a chance to use genetic engineering and synthetic biology to solve problems in their local communities. People from diverse academic backgrounds come together in institutes to form teams. They then work for several months to execute a project while interacting with stakeholders, experts, and other iGEM teams. At the end of the competition cycle, teams present their projects to their peers and, of course, the judges, and compete for various prizes and medals. iGEM places a lot of importance on diversity, inclusion, open access, and biosafety, and it encourages participants to carry these values forward in their projects. This year, ISER Thiruvananthapuram is competing for the first time at iGEM. This pioneering team is also the first undergraduate team from Kerala. In this interview, we talk about their project, discuss what they have learned so far in their journey, discuss how we can increase participation from smaller Indian universities, and they also share some tips and advice for other undergrads who are looking to form their own teams. Let's get started. Okay, guys, so welcome to our interview. This is the first time we're actually interviewing another group of students. So far, it's usually been faculty members. So this is a first for us, and I'm really excited. Although we all know each other, we've all been around each other in campus. We're going to start out with some introductions. So my name is Ira Zebu. I'm the editor-in-chief of Exhibit A. I'm a third-year student here, and I'm a biology major. Akshita?
I am Akshita. I am an editor for Exhibit A, and I am a third-year student also, and I'm a physics major here.
I'll go next. So I'm Tejas Sabu. I'm the team leader of the iGEM team. So I'm a third-year student majoring in biology. And yeah, I look into the wet lab stuff. I plan and execute the experiments along with other members. Abhishek can go next.
Thanks, Tejas, for your kindness. I'm Abhishek. I'm the co-team lead of the iGEM team along with Tejas. I'm a fifth-year biology major. And yeah, I also help designing experiments and carrying them out once in a while. I don't know if Tejas would agree, but once in a while. So.
Yeah, so hi all, I'm Shrutika. I'm a third year bio major, and for iGEM, I am handling wet lab work. Yeah, Sagnik.
Hi, so this is Sagnik. I'm a final year math major student. And as a part of the team, I mostly look into the media and PR section, which includes the wiki part as well. And I started out doing some math modeling, but that is mostly taken care of by Udit and Priyadarshini as of now. And yeah, so that concludes the introduction for everyone present here. We do have a lot more behind the scenes who are right now not in the meeting. I guess Tejas can talk about them a bit.
Yes, so we are a group of 15 students, excluding the mentors and PI. So I'll be mentioning all the team members along with our mentors, advisors, and PI. So we have Udit. He's currently the head of math modeling department. He's been doing a lot of studies on that. And we have Priyadarshini, so she's been handling the safety department in iGEM and also for our project, and also she helps with the math modeling. Well, we have Asmita next, and she does wet lab work. Rutika helps in the wet lab work and videography. We have Sheba Chiran, and she helps in the sponsorship department, HP, and wet lab. Sayantana, she's the head of the HP team. She organizes everything in HP. We have Andruth. She is in charge of the sponsorship department in our team, and she helps in wet lab also. We have Abel, who helps in the dry lab department. Amit Santu, who is there in wet lab. Bhaginath, who helps in the wet lab and HP part of the project. Akshay Jitu, Akshay J, who helps in wet lab, dry lab, and HP. And then we have our two mentors, Ankit Pradhan and Arun Satyan. They have been of immense help to the whole team. They have been guiding us throughout. And we have our advisor, Dr. Ayaz, Mohammad Ayaz. So he's a postdoc. And he has been of immense help to our project. And finally, our PI, Dr. Ravi Maruthanchalam, without whom we couldn't have actually formulated the team and moved ahead with the project. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. So let's get started with our first question. This one is inspired by the publication Wired. They have this series on their YouTube channel where they invite an expert and then they ask the expert to explain a particular scientific concept at different levels of difficulty and understanding. And so given your iGEM team project for this year, 2021, so how would you explain it to, say, a 10-year-old? So 10-year-old would be someone who is in 5th standard.
Okay, I'll take this one, though I don't claim to be an expert in any sense. But so explaining the project to a 10-year-old is quite interesting because it forces you to think about it in slightly different perspectives than we are used to. We are used to using a lot of fancy words to try and impress people, but this is quite different. So if I were to explain our project to a 10-year-old, I would start by asking them to appreciate that there is life everywhere you look. And many of the life forms around us are things we can actually see. For example, human beings, other plants, animals, wild boars, snakes, some scary things, some cute things. So there's life all around us, but then it's important to appreciate that more than the life forms that we can see, there are many, many more life forms that we cannot see. And these typically, like bacteria and other parasites, they're referred to as microorganisms because of their extremely small size, which prevents us from being able to see them with our eyes. So now these microorganisms, many of them are harmless. So they're present all around us in the air, in our food, in water, in trillions and trillions of numbers, which is quite hard to appreciate, but it's something that we humans have been able to figure out. They're present in the air, soil, food, and water. So more often than not, they find ways to get into the body through like our nose, mouth, and so on. But luckily for us, many of them are harmless. That is, when they get inside the body, they do not do anything. However, there are some bad microorganisms which, once they get into the body, they have this ability to cause disease or cause sickness. And those are the main organisms which are studied by people around the world who are trying to find medicines so that sick people can be cured. Now, when you look at the diverse range of microorganisms, we have fungi as well. And the interesting thing about fungi is not all of them are microscopic in nature. For example, mushrooms, commonly edible around the world, those are not microscopic in nature. However, there are microscopic fungi which get into the body and cause infection. And right now in the clinics and the state of medicine as it is, there are not many ways in which we can cure these fungal infections. So the aim of our project is to try to find new medicines so that people who are sick with these fungal infections can be cured.
Okay, so let's take it one step higher. And so now, given the same project, how would you explain it to a high school student?
Yeah, this is approaching comfort zone now. The last one is a bit out of character, but anyways. So for a high school student, I would say, start by saying again that, they should appreciate that the world around us is full of life. And obviously they would know about the problem of fungal infections. Right now, all over the news, you have reported incidences of fungal infections of different colors, which could be quite confusing, like black fungus, yellow fungus, white fungus. I've even seen green, rainbow, whatnot. People's imaginations are just running wild. But the point is, all these different fungal infections are nothing but infections caused by different fungal species, which gives an idea of the diverse range of fungal species which can cause infections. So in which case, naturally, when you have such a diverse range of disease-causing organisms, finding treatments for such a large number of infections is not easy. And that's precisely the problem being faced at clinics worldwide. There is a lack of good drugs to combat these fungal infections. So that's where we come in, and we are trying to find a cure for these infections. Now, it was also very important to us that we were able to design a simple and effective solution, which would be compatible with the environment as well. And which would not be toxic to the host system. So commonly used drugs are known to cause toxicity to the kidney and other organs. So this cytotoxicity was something we were trying our best to avoid, while at the same time not having a solution that is too complex, involving too many moving parts and drugs and so on. So in order to achieve this goal, we turn towards enzymes, which are pretty much the biological workhorses which do most of the processes which sustain life. So we turn to chitinase enzymes, which are known to degrade chitin, which is a polymer that makes up the fungal cell wall. So the basic idea is that chitinase, if it breaks down the fungal cell wall, the fungus can no longer survive because its integrity is compromised. And to work towards this goal, we have been trying to design a new and novel chitinase, which is not naturally present in nature, which we believe will be more effective than the naturally occurring chitinases to target fungal infections.
And finally, the level that I'm sure you were looking forward to the most and the one that would be easiest to communicate. So how would you explain it to another undergraduate student?
Yeah, as you mentioned, this one is right up our alley, I guess. We've been doing this for the last 6 to 8 months. So now, for an undergraduate student, our project is tackling the issue of invasive fungal infections, which are pretty much opportunistic pathogens. So typically, due to the high rate of fungal spores and whatnot in the environment, it is inevitable that all of us come in contact or inhale fungi on a day-to-day basis. However, in most cases, our immune system is well equipped to tackle these infections. However, in the case that the immune system is compromised, or such patients are referred to as immunocompromised patients, for example, people suffering from, let's say, COVID, or people who are undergoing organ transplant and so on, where they've been given immunosuppressants, the immune system is compromised. And in such cases, the fungal species take the opportunity to come and colonize the host system. This is what we refer to as invasive fungal pathogenic infections. And since the immune system is compromised, it becomes very hard for this body to cope up with these infections. And this often leads to severe comorbidities and even death in many cases. At the same time, fungi being eukaryotic in nature, they share some degree of homology to humans. So therefore, the amount of novel molecular druggable targets which you have in fungal species is quite limited, because you can obviously not design a drug which inhibits a fungal process, but also inhibits the same process in the human host system. That would be of no use. So the number of unique druggable targets is very limited, and that's why the repertoire of drugs against these fungal infections is very limited, which is a huge problem. So it was important to us to design a drug which would target a molecule that is specific to the fungi and not present in the human host, while at the same time, it should minimize the risk that drug-resistant fungal species emerge. So if you have a very limited set of drugs, then since life itself is geared to adapt to different situations, in many cases, these fungal species upregulate or downregulate different molecular pathways which circumvent what the drug is trying to accomplish, and then you have a drug-resistant fungal species. So our primary goals were to try to limit the development of drug-resistant fungal species and also target molecules which are novel or unique to the fungus. So this is why we chose chitin, which is pretty much ubiquitously present in the cell wall of all kinds of fungal species, and also it's unique to that particular fungal species. Now, when you have chitin, again, as I mentioned earlier, chitinases are enzymes which break down chitin polymer. So you're interested in using chitinases. The problem is that there is a very, very large set of chitinases which are present in nature, which act on diverse fungal species, making them rather impractical to use. So because of that, we decided to try to combine the enzymatic properties of various different chitinase molecules by domain swapping and protein engineering to lead to the formation of a couple of what we refer to as broad spectrum enzymes, which would target a wide range of fungal species, thus minimizing the number of enzymes we would need to produce.
I really like that aspect of synthetic biology where, I mean, most of the solutions to our problems already exist in nature. We just have to take them, reinvent them a little, and then use these same weapons to solve our own problems that we as mankind are facing. So I think that aspect of your project's really interesting, that you're taking chitinases that already are present in so many other organisms that have to deal with fungi, and then applying it in a way that is useful and safe for humans. So Akshita is going to take the next question now.
Like you said, your project focuses on using a novel approach to treat invasive fungal infections. Tell us about the journey of this project, what inspired it originally, and how the project changed along the way to become what it is today.
Yeah, so I like to answer this question. So initial brainstorming for our project starting during the lockdown 2020 when we were at our homes. The inspiration for our project was a 2018 Ruya Mumbai project, they worked on removing pan stain from the walls. So we plan to develop an antifungal to eradicate the black mold that thrives on walls of buildings and hospitals. Black mold is not only nasty to look, but it is a reason for plethora of respiratory illnesses. So working on this line, we identified many fungi species growing on walls of our institute, and we are using that fungal species to do antifungal assay. Simultaneously, when we were working on a project, we were in contact with various subject experts and we are getting their feedback. As a result, we were arrived at a position that we have to choose one of the two tracks. One is we should make a solution for fungi affecting plants or fungi that is affecting humans. So at that time, there were many cases of mucormycosis, and that helped in making a decision. Okay, we should work on therapeutic because we find it more relevant. So currently, we are working on making a therapeutic solution to an existing to a problem of invasive fungal infections in humans. Now, developing a therapeutic will of course take a lot of time, but the work that we will be able to accomplish during this short span of time will lay a foundation for researchers to work on. And moreover, successful completion of our project will result in a new or a sixth class of antifungal, as I say. And at present, we are focusing on proving our hypothesis correct. That is, the hybrid chitinase that we have designed will have more activity as compared to wild type chitinases. And now we have successfully cloned one hybrid chitinase. We got crude extract also. Now we are working on getting a purified protein and doing antifungal assay. So it was like quite amazing how a brainstorm idea transformed into a real life solution to an like extremely relevant scenario. Yes.
Thank you
think-
for your answer. Yeah, please go ahead.
Yeah, like I know that a lot of people didn't even know much about like invasive fungal infections before COVID, and like Abhishek mentioned, like black fungus and white fungus, and all of this was occupying like the mind of the public. So it's been really nice, like you mentioned, to see that what you initially thought of as an environmental solution, the presence of fungal spores and invasive fungal species in the environment, and you transformed it to be something that can be used therapeutically. And that is very interesting to hear how it evolved in that sense.
Yes,
The
so
scenario from last year actually has like changed our project a lot. Like when the post-COVID scenario, that has had put a lot of effects in how we thought about the project. And I think that is quite nice as a iGEM project as a whole, because iGEM expects the project to be more relevant to the local community that you belong to. And we are really happy that we could do something that we think could potentially help a lot of people around us.
Okay, so my next question is that most of the teams that participate in iGEM from India are from like these top institutes. So IISc has a team, the other ICERs have a team, some of the IITs have teams, and a few private universities here and there like Manipal or VIT. But the participation from small universities tends to be very low or non-existent at all. So how can we sort of encourage the participation of these small universities or lesser known universities in competitions like iGEM?
Right, I would take that question. So firstly, really interesting that you have made that observation, because that is quite true. Like the amount of participation from bigger institutes is considerably higher than compared to every other institute that we have in the country who also do science. So the iGEM scene in India actually dates back to 2007, 2008. And the earliest teams were teams from IIT Madras, and there was also a team from NCBS. And that was also the time when the ISAs were first set up in India. So during the time of 2007-8. So that time ISAs didn't even exist, although they comprise a huge portion of iGEM teams at current time. And after that, in the last 13 years, in last year, 2020, although there was lockdown, we had around 15 teams from the country. And I guess that was the highest number over all these years. And out of these 15 teams, there was a major participation from IISERs and IITs. Of course, we have seen some amazing projects in recent years from non-branded institutes as well. So one of them, Shrutika, as she mentioned, that was Ruya Mumbai, who did an amazing job inspiring us from the beginning. And but the number of projects from non-branded institutions were quite low. There are three major reasons I think that we can talk about that stands to cause this scenario. And firstly, we have a scenario of the initial funding that teams require to join a project, like to start register their iGEM team. And then they also require an institutional infrastructure where they can carry out their project. And thirdly, for new iGEM teams to come up, we need proper outreach. So for new iGEM teams to actually know what iGEM is, how important it is to participate in this extremely new setup of competition, which is like actually bigger than just a competition. So basically coming to the third point that I mentioned about outreach. So recently, in the recent years, especially since the time it has lockdown has entered the country, iGEM teams around India, they have been very industrious in communicating about iGEM and synthetic biology in general to the STEM community. And as well as I would really like to mention the efforts made by the Indian ambassadors. So iGEM has regional ambassadors in major continents and countries. So there are a group of Asian ambassadors as well as a smaller group of Indian ambassadors. And they spend a lot of time in communicating about iGEM, like in encouraging new teams to participate, as well as providing new teams with resources, with any kind of guidance that they have. And so coupled with the outreach done by iGEM teams themselves, as well as the ambassadors, I hope in future years, more people, more new teams would surely be there in the list of iGEM teams from the country. And I think another observation that I have made and a lot of people have made, which you should also think about, is the lack of high school teams. So iGEM happens in stage of like, there could be an undergrad team, there could be an overgrad team, as well as high school teams. So in India till now, there has been no high school team who registered for iGEM competition. And this is not the scenario in other countries, like mostly in the West, you see there are a lot of high school teams, as well as Asian countries like China has a host of high school teams, but that is not the scenario in our country. So regarding that also, iGEM ambassadors are soon starting a new venture that they call the Indian League, and which aspires to make iGEM more accessible to high school teams in India. This program basically includes bringing resources and guidance to newbie iGEM high school teams, and also like making sure that they get the assistance to take part in iGEM, be like through project guidance or through connection to older iGEM teams. So newer high school teams will be formed and they will work alongside already existing iGEM teams who are either undergrad or overgrad teams. So I think that would be another venture that we are all looking forward to, because that would enable like high school teams from India in future. And yeah, so as all the teams that are participating currently this year from India, we have 10 teams who are participating. And obviously huge, I mean, good part of them are from IISERs. And we are trying our best to talk more about iGEM to institutions who practice science or engineering. And we are trying to make them find out like what iGEM is in general and how important it is to contribute to synthetic biology, because iGEM is not just a competition. It also encourages you to take your project to the next level after the competition ends. So, and it also encourages teams to contribute to the repository of synthetic biological research in general. So I guess it will be very important that more number of institutions from our country participate in future, and we are really looking forward to it.
I guess as a follow-up question, do you think, like, to people outside the iGEM community, does the competition seem kind of intimidating? Because there's so many different aspects involved. There's of course the biology aspect to it, but you have human practices, you have outreach, you have communication. So it can seem kind of overwhelming to an outsider. Do you think this perception also has sort of influenced maybe stopping or making certain teams hesitant in pursuing or joining iGEM?
Yeah, I would really not deny that, because even while you're inside an iGEM team and you're a registered iGEM team, you will get very overwhelmed. So because the competition is big, as a part of a team, you need to take care of a lot of areas. So things that you wouldn't expect that you will have to take care of. So you have to take care of finances, you have to take care that your project gets to people more. Actually, people know about your project and understand about your project. You have to take care of talking to sponsors. You have to take care that you effectively talk to your stakeholders and you get inputs from them and you integrate that in your project. So it's not just about designing a synthetic biology project and working in a lab. It's bigger than that. And obviously, as a team, when you start working on it, you will get overwhelmed. But as in the past, a lot of teams have mentioned, and I would like to mention it again, that when you complete it, you will feel that it's worth it. Like, even though you go through a lot of hardships and everyone present in the team, they have to do a lot of work in a lot of different sectors, but you do have a huge learning outcome out of it. So in the end, as an individual person, as an individual member of the team, you will learn a lot, and that would help you along the way, like when you go forward and do other things in life. And so I think that is one point which people should think about, that even though there is something that they have to focus their huge amount of time and give a lot of effort, they will also learn a lot of things, and the entire outcome will be really worth it. But still, I think people will get intimidated. And I think one thing that I also missed is about the funding and infrastructure. So some people will think they will not have a proper lab infrastructure so that they could start their project because they're also in a very beginner stage of their undergraduate research program. So I think that wouldn't also intimidate a team from joining iGEM, because not all the time you have to do heavy research as a part of iGEM. iGEM is mainly a platform which encourages you to generate ideas. So it's not completely necessary that you build something totally new that doesn't exist. So as you mentioned, that we are also using chitinases which are already present in the environment, and we're trying to create a new multi-domain protein. So it is not always required that you do something which has never been thought of. So iGEM encourages you to come up with new ideas and start working something on that idea. So a lot of those projects, people might think that, okay, this is not good enough, or they might not be able to do it. But once you start, you get a lot of help from the iGEM community that already exists. And I guess that boosts you up a lot. So even though you might have thought that, okay, our project would never go to this stage, when you finish it up in a course of like 6 to 8 months, you will see that a lot of things has been achieved which you didn't expect at all. Because that's how the community works. It helps you a lot regarding like developing your project all together. There are a lot of collaborations that would happen. So you have nothing to worry about, because you will always be getting support from the community that you have around you. And I think that is something that should motivate new teams to come up.
Adding to that, I would just like to add some part to that, what Sagnik said. So iGEM has been quoted as like pricey competition, which is worth it. So many a times, iGEM itself has a lot of these grant opportunities which will actually fund the teams. But then there are no pre-registration grants, which opportunities which iGEM gives. So many times these institutes actually find it really difficult to gather up the funds to register for iGEM. So from India also, these pre-registration, there was this IBEC. Till last year it was there, and this year I don't know why it has been stopped. So because of that, many teams did not even participate. And in our HP itself, we had communicated with the previous iGEM teams, some of the previous iGEM teams, and they said like they did not have consecutive iGEM teams participating in every year competition because they did not get enough funds for registration. So I feel like that pre-registration amount is kind of, the limiting factor for many teams for not even registering for iGEM and not looking up for doing something for iGEM. So if government actually supports that IBEC grant was actually from DBT. So if actually government puts like these grants for pre-registration grants or something for and encourage these competitions, more teams can be seen participating in iGEM.
Yeah, I think it's also a very crucial issue, because when you are going to start up your project, and at that time you either would have not a complete project idea, or you have something that you have not worked on like at all. So you can't directly go towards sponsors. Especially this is something that we have also faced a lot, because we were a first timer team from our institute. So that phase where you have an idea which is just beginning and you haven't worked on it at all, to talk to people that, okay, we have done something and this is what we expect. So that time pitching your project to anyone is quite hard, and like receiving funding for that is quite hard. So that's why I guess I think the more iGEM is spreading across the country, the more number of teams that are taking part, actually companies are also getting to know about the existence of iGEM and the kind of outputs that iGEM has been giving towards the synthetic biology community. And I guess in future, even companies would be, or like companies and institutions would be happy to sponsor very new teams, considering the entire iGEM community that exists, and they could expect that amazing projects would come up, because that initial stage is quite intimidating. It was quite intimidating for us as well. So once you pass that and once you start it, I think most iGEM teams would go till the end very easily.
It's really nice to hear how collaborative the whole iGEM community is, that it's not just, individual teams working kind of in their own bubble, but there's a lot of back and forth between you and support from various kind of communities and organizations, whether that's monetary support or in terms of expertise. It's nice to know that it's a very collaborative venture that encourages sharing and cooperation.
So my next question is, what were some aspects of this competition that you were surprised by? And how did the actual process of the competition differ from some of your expectations?
Okay, I'll take this one. So firstly, kind of naively, I was surprised at how much thought and detail goes into an actual iGEM project, which shouldn't have been the case at all. It should have been quite obvious that you're getting into something of quite a considerable magnitude. However, we were lucky enough that our mentors brought us into focus right from the beginning by, hammering us with a barrage of questions which we were not prepared to answer, which left us feeling very stupid. But then at the same time, it forced us to really plan our project in great detail, which has been invaluable for some kind of smooth progress of the project from that point forward. So definitely I was surprised by the meticulous planning and detail which is required right from day one, but that definitely leads to smoother sailing later on. And apart from this, I was also surprised by how, as you were just mentioning, how collaborative and how international the whole experience is. So we regularly correspond with teams from around the world. For example, we're collaborating with teams in Russia, Greece, Ecuador, and so on. We have our team members have made a lot of friends with people from Team Ecuador and so on, like Tejas and Sagnik. So the fact that the experience is so international is quite nice and quite enriching. You get to discuss biology with people from around the world and get their perspective and their takes and so on. And then also you have strong support from like the IGM alumni community and mentors and other people and so on. So it really becomes a whole immersive experience in that sense, which is something I was not prepared for. Thirdly is the fact that how much more IGEM is than just biology. So typically people go into it thinking they're going to solve some new problem using synthetic biology. But then my eyes were open to this fact when I realized even other Indian teams have people ranging from economics majors to law students and so on in their team, which was quite surprising. And they look at things like the cost benefit analysis of their research. How does it fit into the existing policies and public law that's present in their local community, and how they can fit their project into the global community at large. So definitely IGEM is a lot more than just biology. You have mathematical modeling, computer science, law, finance, arts, and so on. So it's really a broader platform to express the creativity of diverse range of students which you have at any particular institute. And yeah, so I was also quite not surprised, but then quite naturally the whole team has become very close. So it was like 15 students who you've not really spoken to before now become one kind of family. So I guess working with people for this much time naturally results in something like that, but it was quite nice to make friends from a lot of other batches, and the whole experience has been pretty enriching for me.
Something which also like came up as a thing that we didn't expect was the importance of human practices as a whole. So I think a lot of teams who will start up newly, they would hugely focus on the scientific part of the project and the idea that actually stems behind the like the idea that is crucially behind the project. But the human practices section is actually quite important, because that is something that also leads the project throughout. That is something that I think a lot of IGEM teams who are starting out should also look forward to from the very beginning. So that was also something that we didn't expect in the very beginning, and then we realized the importance of it soon. Yeah, and another thing that I think in the lines of Abhishek, I would like to mention is that about the mentorship that teams are receiving. So starting this year, IGEM has also started their own mentorship program, and through that they have assigned they have been assigning IGEM alumni, like one IGEM alumni to a team, so that they could like directly interact with that individual and know more about how the project has been done in previous years and how they can help them, the new teams, as a part of their current project. And I think that is also something that has been quite helpful.
So for my next question, so as members of the IGEM team, and of course as more broadly as biologists and scientists, there is a strong section which involves communicating science, and specifically in this context synthetic biology, to a broader audience. So right now in like pop culture, so things like TV shows and books and movies, synthetic biology and genetic engineering is it has a very negative portrayal. It's either shown as being responsible for creating some kind of deadly virus, or spreading a pandemic, or causing a zombie apocalypse, or creating some kind of strange mutant animals. So do you think these depictions of synthetic biology and genetic engineering has affected the perception of these fields in the public?
Yeah, I can take on that. I'll try to answer it in the best way possible. Technically, personally, I feel like these pop cultures and movies, they definitely play a major role in shaping public's perception of synthetic biology and science as a whole. So most of them generally tend to showcase synthetic biology like a tool which you can, use to create some kind of bioweapon, or even recreate or re-engineer the DNA of some previously existing species. Like one of the movies which I can tell is about Jurassic Park. So again, it can go a lot crazy levels there. So
there are two classes. There is science, and then there is movie science. And under movie science, there is, like in most cases, there is either time travel or bioweapon. And that's where like the genetic engineering part comes in, I guess.
I think that's why IGM is mention to safety. We have to fill safety forms. We can't do anything like which will attract people. We have to make a project that solve real life problems, show the positive effect. Yeah.
Moreover, these movies generally tend to show that how we use these technologies to nurture our greed than our needs, which often leads to more havoc and chaos in the future. And most of them aren't like very realistic. They just show it as like a very fast-paced action. Like you just create something in a few weeks, days, or 1 year, something. But then it isn't usually like that. So I personally have experience with like PCR. Even just a small simple PCR will make you run after it for days just for troubleshooting it. So again, it's not very something which you can do very quickly. And so I mean, those are like kind of the bad stuff about these things. And so coming to the on the other side, if we see, like most of them, they portray it as something very cool and fascinating, and it actually inspires and motivates many of the teens out there to take up synthetic biology. They feel like they can actually create something new. They feel like biology is so cool. Let's I can do something like that in the future, help the society or something, make something. And there are these superheroes which are mutants or something, Wolverine and other fictional characters like Spider-Man, who use their powers to do something good for the public. So those kind of like things are motivating for the teens out there into taking synthetic biology and continuing in that part. And for the last part of the question, which was like whether these TVs, books, or movies, can they communicate a serious science in a good, I mean, can they communicate the science in a good way? Well, kind of yes, because in recent years we have seen that there are many documentaries, documented documentaries on this scientific discoveries, and which have been really well explained and made especially tailored well, so that the general public can easily understand what happens behind every scientific discovery. And many a times these books and stories or articles, they tend to portray the doctors and researchers as some heroes that have created some kind of vaccines and antibiotics to fight against the plagues and pandemics. That kind of brings up their level. So even in the case of COVID-19, there were a lot of articles about scientists working hard day and night, trying to find the cure find the vaccine for the COVID-19. Everyone just flipping over the pages of the newspaper every day.
There surely will be many movies on that in the coming future.
Definitely. So, and even the newspapers, they kind of like, also the writers, some of the writers are even retired scientists, so they kind of know how to communicate properly the science to the general public. And the journalists also have some scientific advisors who can advise them how to properly write it. In such way, yeah, these books, TVs, and newspaper in recent times have been able to communicate science in a good way to the general audience, I would say.
And I think a lot of movies can be like serve as like a starting point to get people interested in particular things. So there was that movie, The Theory of Everything, which was like a biopic on Stephen Hawking. And I know that, after the movie was released, a lot of people became really interested in his work. And I know that that can sort of serve as a gateway of getting, interested into particular topics in science. And even like the movie Interstellar, when it came out, everyone after that was like obsessed with black holes and time travel and space and things like that. So I think it does, of course, while the movie itself, some movies try to be as realistic as possible in terms of their science and depictions of certain things, and some movies are less loose about it. They're like, okay, it'll be kind of accurate, but they want the sort of fictional, the wow factor, so they sometimes tends to sacrifice the scientific accuracy. But it does sort of inspire, or it can pique the curiosity, especially of like young people and school children, and get them interested into sort of learning more about that particular subject or topic that was depicted in the movie.
So I guess movie making was for long considered like as a major thing that people in artistic area should do. But in recent times, things like that has been like taken as a part of SciComm as well. And in recent years, there has been a lot of development in making science communication more and more accessible and better towards people. And lot of these techniques that would come from people who were inspired by movies or who were inspired in general by the idea of communicating something that is happening in anywhere, be it be fictional or actual scientific information. And that is doing a great job in actually inspiring people to at least look into newer science and what is happening in the scientific community. And so both books, journals, and like movies and any kind of digital media in recent years, they have been doing a lot in inspiring people. And I think that would also be a good starting point and also be a good supporting factor for iGEM teams in a very small way.
For my last question, what advice would you give to other undergraduate students in India who might be interested in participating in iGEM?
I think everyone can answer that question or something. So I'll give my opinion. Well, if you want, my first advice would be like, if you are interested in iGEM, go and check out the iGEM site, start from scratch. There is literally everything about iGEM written there, and then other team wikis are there available online with plethora of information. So this will actually, set you on track on what exactly you are committed to, what all are the projects which people have you undertaken usually, and how you can actually improve on other people's project or something. So whatever idea or thing, projects, ideas that you get or emerge in your head, you try to not let go of it, and then try to build upon and improve on that idea. Discuss it with as many friends and professors if you have, and get their feedback, because you have like a limited framework of knowledge, and your professors definitely will have more knowledge about it. So discuss with your professors and build upon that idea, and just be confident with that idea. And iGEM has loads of opportunities, and it will give you enough time and space to build upon that basic framework that you have come up with. So yeah, that would be from my side. Others can give their opinions as well.
So I think newer teams who would like to participate in the competition, they might get intimidated with this fact that how would they generate a completely new idea for like such a big project. And I think although it sounds like that, it wouldn't be that hard, because you would just not sit at a place and start figuring out ideas. That doesn't work here, and like in any field of science. Like when you try to prove a theorem, you just don't try to randomly start writing the proof without knowing any prerequisites. So you would be reading a lot about projects that had been done in the past, or you would be reading a lot about how synthetic biology as a subject works, and that would automatically give you like a lot of like new ideas, or you will see problems around you all the time, and you can connect them to, okay, this is something that might be approached through this direction. And that would be a really great starting point for teams who would like to participate in iGEM soon. And I like this fact how like we as undergraduate students have started, and now we are in a stage where we could give advice to other undergrad students. That is quite nice. So as Shrutika mentioned, back in 2020 when we were brainstorming for ideas, that time over the course of months, we also had like several ideas, and we rejected a lot of them ultimately to focus on one. And I think all of us are very happy that we did focus on that particular idea, because it turned out to be really well.
Yeah, I want to say we have to be motivated and enthusiastic for the whole time. Like it's a big commitment, and to start a new project, like when we start from scratch. So I do wet lab work. At starting, I don't know anything. I don't know how to use centrifugation machine, but now I have learned a lot. Seniors helped us. PhD, School of Biology PhDs, they are helping us a lot. And sometimes you will feel like, okay, it's just like I can't do this, but it's fine. Take a good sleep, come back, discuss with PhDs, discuss with your friends, discuss with team members, and you will do. Wet lab sometimes it's too tiring, or like sometimes I feel okay, now I can't do this. Just I feel like okay, just leave this. But then when I discuss with PhDs and other seniors, team members, then they help in troubleshooting. So then I feel okay, if I do a next time, like do the changes, it will be done. So yeah, we have to be motivated, and we should sometimes there will be ups and downs, but we have to troubleshoot and come back and do it again. It is like worth. Yeah. It's a big
That
commitment, but it's worth.
that I can do this feeling, I guess everyone feels a lot of times during the course of the project in every aspect, like be it wet lab or dry lab, be it like designing new things, like or like making videos or writing wiki. In every sector there is this kind of feeling that would definitely come, because as we talked about it before, it will be overwhelming at after a certain point of time. But I guess if you work with people together, then it will be kind of okay then.
What I would say is primarily two things. One is if you're interested in forming an iGEM team, start as early as possible, because the more time you have, the more time you have to work, and that's better. And apart from all these nice motivational things that they've said, like be enthusiastic, come to work every day, I would say set your priorities straight. I see too many people who are involved in way too many activities who want to take up iGEM, and they are left in some continuous state of wanting to work but not being able to work because the thought of doing so much work is very painful. So if you want to do iGEM, I would at least recommend that you leave all other activities that you are in, because you need that remaining time to relax, not do some other club work or be expected to meet some other deadline. So assuming you have work from your institution, you'll have that iGEM, and you'll be able to scrape some hours to go chill out, like play some sports, watch a movie, do other hobbies. So have a realistic aim of how much work is going to be there, and free up time for that and start early. And of course, yes, be motivated and like be enthusiastic, be ready to work every day. And even if you feel like giving up, yeah, order food from outside, sleep, and then come back, it'll be fine.
Yeah, I do that sometimes. My code won't compile correctly and it'll be like 1 a.m. and I'm like, okay, it's enough for tonight. I'm going to close this, go to sleep. We'll get back to this in the morning. And it's nice to see how like you've picked up particular things from this process of being a part of an iGEM team, and how you're going to sort of, I know it will go and inform and impact the way you will go on to carry out research in your own fields further down. And it's very nice to hear. I mean, all of you talk about how much you as individuals have learned and changed over such a short period of time. And I think that it definitely has opened my eyes up to see just how, even though challenging iGEM is, it's a lot more challenging. I mean, now that you mentioned all of the nitty-gritty small things that you guys have had to sort of take care of and think about, but it's also, I've realized it's a lot more enriching and interesting than, what it seems to be on the outside. There's a lot of behind the scenes work. And so yeah, that's about it from our side.
Especially like as a first time iGEM team, it's becomes really challenging, because that time the institute that you're participating from, that doesn't have any background in iGEM. So you firstly have to go to the administration and convince them that doing iGEM is important. So that stage is quite hard. And after that, like securing funding, then securing infrastructure to carry out your lab work, then actually doing the work, and then communicating about your project, and then meeting the iGEM deadlines that is set up by the iGEM headquarters. So all of those things come up after that. And then, but I guess once institutes start their first iGEM team, it will be a bit more easier for future iGEM teams to come up, because the institute will already know about the background in IGEM, how IGEM generally works. There would be a PI who had helped an IGEM team before. Then the institute already will have connection, and as a IGEM team, as a participating institute, it will have a presence in the IGEM community. So I think for institutes who had an IGEM team participate in the competition before, it would be quite easy to form a new team and like jump in the competition for future years. But that also requires a lot of planning, obviously, and one needs to start early, as Abhishek mentioned. And for in case of new IGEM teams, as we have talked about before, I think there are certain things that they should focus on, and then contact appropriate people and then take appropriate steps so that they could participate for the competition in the coming IGEM session. And I hope in the next year itself, we would see a lot more than just 10, 15 IGEM teams from India. And there would be high school teams as well. So it will be very interesting. And it will be really fun for everyone. Ultimately, when you participate at IGEM, in the end, you will understand that, okay, everything that had happened, it was quite fun, because there are a lot of aspects that were quite interesting and you enjoyed them. And I think that is one of the important things that one should just think about.
So thank you so much, all of you, for taking the time out to join us today for this interview. And we wish you best of luck for the remaining portion of your project and for your final presentation. And that's it. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for
Thank
having
you.
us. It was a lot of fun.
Thank you. It's a great time talking to you.